The Office for National Statistics tells us that in a decade's time, there'll be even more of us in England than we thought, up to 60 million people. And most of the newcomers will be immigrants. Pressure groups claim that'll mean more pressure on roads, schools and hospitals. So I'll be waiting for yet another tube train before I can squeeze under somebody's armpit and get to work. But without young immigrants, who's going to do all the whizzy new jobs in tech? And who's going to pay Nick's pension? And who's going to cut my toenails?
Yes.
I think we've got three choices. We could go German.
OK.
Let a million young folk in and spend billions teaching them the language, building new homes, buying more trains. And I could retire one day. Or we could turn Japanese, put up the walls, maintain our culture, and build robots to do the new jobs and look after the old folks. But we'd probably still have to work pretty much forever. Or we could all just have one child, as was the policy in China, and then we'd definitely have to work till we dropped. So, sauerkraut, sushi, or spring roll in one?
Well, I'm one of 6 children, by the way, so my parents was doing their bit to get the youth.
Hang on, we haven't got to contraception yet.
Oh yeah, I know. But yeah.
The nights are long in Hull. They have to do something up there.
To do up there. What can I say? But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's become a bit of a migration has become a dirty word in various different places. When you even try to have a sensible conversation about the things that we're trying to discuss now, I do think you almost get sideswiped very, very quickly. She's a racist, he's a racist, they're a racist, they're talking about migration and immigration, which I think has been really unhelpful. Because I think what we need to do is, as a country, particularly if, and I use the word if, we are going to Brexit anytime soon, I'm not holding my breath on that one, but we do need to have sensible conversations about immigration strategies, what that looks like, the kind of immigration that we want. And I think that's failed very much. So we've had conversations about whether we can restrict immigration to tens of thousands, which have absolutely failed. We've had conversations around prioritisation of EU nationals versus none. And I think we need to go right back to the basics and look at what is it as a society we want to be like, we want to look like. And to your point, you know, obviously you'd never go down the one-child policy of China, but I think you raised some quite interesting societal conversations as well about places like Japan, where they do very much care for their elders, and we don't tend to so much. And I think that we need to look at immigration society. I don't have an answer for you, by the way. If you're thinking at the end of my thing,
right?
Yeah, if you're thinking at the end of my thing, I've got the solution. I don't, but I very much welcome these sensible conversations about immigration and the strategy and the plans that we want to put in place.
Well, to be clear, I'm basically a sauerkraut man. I think, you know, we will have to accept young people into the country, and you know, Nick and I need to get off the telly quite soon and retire. But the point I'm really making is we need to stop putting off the choice, and that's what we do every single day.
I think Germany. I think there needs to be a sauerkraut that's not on steroids, may I say, right? So that it was the speed and the intensity of the sort of the sheer numbers
doses of sauerkraut.
And the danger there, of course. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Let's say, you know,
measured portions
of sauerkraut.
Magic, Trevor. I've got to tell you 3 about equality and human rights. What's happened to you 3? Honestly, Michelle and I being so careful, you 3 have gone crazy.
So somebody recently.
Finish and then Nick can remind us of our humanity.
Yeah, indeed. Somebody recently, David Frum recently wrote a piece for The Atlantic addressing this very subject, and actually he faced a huge backlash, so he had to write a response piece to his original piece, because his basic intention was to try and write a sensible conversation around immigration, and it was very caveated. I've read both the original and the response, and he was at pains to try and be nuanced about it, to your point, because obviously the conversation is fraught. But still, yet, he faced a backlash. One of the dangers he raises in there with the sauerkraut model is, of course, the AfD rose in Germany, Alternative for Deutschland, and gained in power to the point now where they're the second largest bloc in the parliament. We've got to do this in a way that doesn't lead to that result. And so far, in every case, it's led to that result.
It's interesting. Yeah. See, I've raised this as an age question. You guys have gone straight to immigration.
Yeah.
The one thing you guys won't do is say, maybe we need to basically die early, back off on
You want to
on the more old
Who's going to
people.
police that?
Yeah.
Go on, you find out.
worried about what we're going to do to him.
I think you're going to come in anyway.
I would like to come in because the reason that this country has the 5th or 6th most powerful economy is because of how many young people have been attracted. In many cases, young Europeans, not exclusively, but young Europeans who've come to cities such as London and others, and Manchester and Birmingham, and my God, they put in a shift and they drive the economy, and we cannot afford to lose that. That being said, in a way, Magic stole a lot of my thunder. You can't honestly point to what Angela Merkel did in the way she did it as a success, because it divided society. There are still stories and counter stories of whether some immigrants did or did not try and set fire to people in Cologne on a certain New Year's Eve, and I don't think that will ever be resolved. But you go to some cities now in Germany, I am told on reliable sources, and there really is a nasty tension, because a lot of these people who were brought in haven't been found jobs, haven't sought jobs, and it is a very divided society. Someone as wise and sage as you are in these affairs, you couldn't possibly sign off on that.
Can I just add to...
You could.
I'll come back on that.
Just, I'll be quick. I think I personally
That's a first on the pledge.
I agree with you. I think long-term, the sauerkraut model is the right model. Short-term, you have the backlash that these two have described. The Japanese model certainly doesn't work. No. They've got some of the highest suicide rates in the world. Yeah. And as we know...
That's because they're all 116 years old.
Well, and the China model doesn't work because now we've got 100 million shortfall in women. So they're actually going to have to bring in immigration to try and marry off some of the men in that country. I think what we need to look at is, I don't personally think immigration so much is the problem. I think it's how it's done. It needs to be staggered. And then the other thing as well is, in order to be able to plan for your public services and so on, you need to know what numbers are coming in, which was the problem with freedom of movement. We didn't know how many were going to be coming in. So I think that long-term, it's a sauerkraut model, but portion control.
I just want to check my...
Did you just go pro-Brexit?
With the freedom of movement? No, I am alive.
No.
I am alive.
No, but I've always said, and Trevor and I actually were the only two on the board that raised this, the freedom of movement issue is...
We're on the board of the Remain campaign.
And the freedom of movement issue has to be looked at, and actually Merkel and Macron themselves are going to have to look at it, because they're getting problems in their own countries.
It was a kind of bizarre moment that there's only two black faces around the board.
And we were the ones that raised it.
Can I push the Remain campaign, and we're the only two people who said, by the way, we need to do...
We've got to stop this immigration.
Can I push? Coming back on your point...
Yes, Trevor.
Point, Nick. I mean, look, there is... See, the discussion we're having, we're doing it again. We're getting into obsession about immigration.
Right.
But the issue is much bigger than that. Okay. There's a demographic question, and we have a choice to make. The Germans made a decision. The Germans said...
whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not, if we don't get more young people, we've got no choice. And they're spending something like 20 billion euros on this year.
Tanking, and their economy is tanking.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Not by comparison with ours. Actually, anyway, the point is they are spending 20 billion euros on housing, language tuition and so on to deal with the problems of integration. My criticism is we keep dodging the question. Yeah. What are we going to do, for example, about the fact that we're going to have to look after a lot of old people? Yeah. In 2016, there are 1.6 million of us who are over 85. By 2066, there'll be 5.1 million. That is 7% of the population. They are going to cost us a lot of money. Now, we have to make a choice. What do we do?
And we're having less and less kids.
Do we focus on helping the older people and by constructing the economy in such a way that it works for them, or do we just expand the economy by bringing more people in and hope that that will pay for you and me to get old? We've got to make a choice, and we keep putting it off.
But I think,
keep dodging it.
No, but I think there's only one choice, Trevor, which is that choice. It's just nobody wants to be honest about it. And really, the thing we have to look at is how we do it. You know, it's got to be a staggered approach.
I mean, no, that's it. I think that I was going to hark on back to something you said earlier about freedom of movement, but I think actually the debate's moved on since then. What I will say is hopefully by 66 you said, Trevor? Hopefully by then there'll also be some advances in automation and technology which will help our economy out a bit, you know, with a more automated economy. Of course, though, that creates other knock-on effects when it comes to labour and laying off people in the sorts of industries that have become automated. So I think we're headed to a few crises.
I'll reintroduce the discussion and pledge on 2066 when we come back.
When we're all 80.
Well,